Hey you all, this is Mackie P.I.M.O JW Jones. Want to give a shout out to all the P.I.M.O JWs, the ex-JWs, the non-JWs, and the JWs, because I know you're watching. I'm just piggybacking off of my last video that I made last night. And once again, it's talking about the children, because I don't know, it's just this, I'm just really passionate about this subject. Because maybe I'm a parent, you know. So when Stephen let he's talking about, when you see a baby, they're like, oh, look at that little angel, but more they should say, oh, look at that little enemy of God. The senile is coming out of these governing body members. Like, the senile is coming out. Like, it's crazy. But Watchtower has been preaching about really not having kids for years, especially around 1914, especially around, 1975, don't have children, the end of the world is coming. What's that one scripture that they love to just, they loved, like back in the day, they loved the scripture about woe to the pregnant woman. Yeah, I haven't heard that scripture in years, but I mean, I've heard it, but like back in the day, they used to use the hell out of it because they were discouraging people from having children. Okay. And is our children enemies of God, or are children enemies of Watchtower? Because you can't even have children if you want to apply for Bethel. I'm talking about young children. I'm not talking about grown children. If you're an older person, if you can get into Bethel at an older age, you lucky, But they want you fresh out of high school, pretty much. They don't want you to have children as long as you're there. So if you're trying to make Bethel a long-time career, you could kiss parenthood goodbye. And even though they're not saying that it's not a good idea to have children, they always put those little subtle subliminal messages, those little subtle hints. If a woman or man not married is listening to this talk, and maybe one day one day they may want to get married and have children, that talk might end up discouraging them from even wanting to have children, especially if they're a firm believer in Watchtower doctrine. They could be like, well, you know what, kids maybe ain't such a good idea. Maybe we should just hold off on having kids until the quote-unquote new system of things, and then we can have our kids then. And a lot of, JW couples, especially Bethelite couples, were duped into this. And, now they missed out on their opportunity to have children because they dedicated their whole entire life to Bethel. And you already know, if you get pregnant, you're out of there, because they have no place for children. They don't have any daycare centers, no child care. Like, you have everything else. You mean to tell me that you can't find any volunteer child care providers? Now, I'm sure, matter of fact, I know there are plenty of child care providers, even daycare owners. Matter of fact, I worked at a daycare, I want to say almost 20 years ago. Right out of high school into college, I was working for a daycare while I was going to school. So I know they're out there. I know that there are like qualified women, men too, but let's just stick with women, that would qualify to be a child care provider for Bethel if Bethel had a child care program. You know, but they're not even putting it into consideration, because years ago I made a video about how Watchtower is not really a family-oriented organization. It's a company. It's like working at a job. Now, you know you can't bring your children to work. I know I can't bring my I know I can't bring my child to my job. You know? So it's the same thing. It's work. It's a job. Meaning you can't really take your kids there. So, and even if you're not trying to go to Bethel, even if you're just a regular rank and file JW, it's not as bad as it was back in the day. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not that bad. But when you have the quote unquote so-called highest of the highest members of the Watchtower organization, which is the governing body, always talking negative about children, especially Stephen Lett. I don't know what he has. I don't trust him. Well, I don't trust none of them. But I especially don't trust Stephen Lett. He don't like kids. Like, I would never leave my child alone with Stephen Lett. Like, no way. No. None of them, to be honest. The only one that I think has children is Tony Morris. I think he has some sons. I think he has 2 sons, matter of fact. But Stephen Lett doesn't have any kids. I don't think Samuel Hurd has any kids, and none of the rest of them have kids. But it's just like, for a Jehovah's Witness to hear this, they're like, oh, so you're going to call my child an enemy of God? That's just a tactic. It's a tactic to get your child to get baptized as early as possible, because they know that a lot of these young adults and these teenagers, they leaving and they getting the hell up out of that organization, because for one, the majority of these young ones are P.I.M.Os as well. P.I.M.O teenagers, P.I.M.O adolescents. But the only reason that they still there is because they don't want to disappoint their family. They don't want to disappoint their mother. They don't want to disappoint their father or their brothers and sisters or whatever. You know? And they don't want to risk losing them. They don't want to risk losing them. So they stay pretending like they still believe in the doctrine, just so that they can, stay in touch with their family, which, of course, it's a sad thing, but this is what a lot of us do. And that's what I did. I think I've been a P.I.M.O ever since 2010, to be honest. But I really didn't wake up until 2016, and I definitely 100% woke up in 2017, because that's when I started making. That's when I really started making my videos on this channel. Was in 2017, when I felt confident enough to, speak my opinion on it. And which is why I created this channel, because this channel allows me to express how I feel about the organization without, offending my Jehovah's Witness friends and family that follow my other YouTube channels, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want people to find out who I really am, you know. But, well, until I feel like I'm ready to do that. But yeah, they use that as a scare tactic, little enemy of God. So a parent sitting up here listening to this, like, oh my God, I don't want my child to be an enemy of God. Oh my goodness, you have to study and get baptized as soon as possible. It's a genius, an evil genius. Okay, this is by design. This is by design. But the thing is, they just browbeat children so much. I felt so just like I was never good enough as a kid. Never good enough. Never good enough. And they even teach parents how to even just, you know, discourage children from just flourishing in what they are naturally talented in. Which is very, very, very damaging, and it could ruin their adulthood if they allow it. They seriously have to go to therapy. You can undo undo everything from being a Jehovah's Witness. I don't care how long you've been at the truth. I don't care not the truth. Oh my God, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I don't care how long you've been at that organization. I don't care if you've been disfellowship for 20 years. I don't care if you a full-blown apostate. You know, it still has a hold on you. It still has a hold on you, and it starts from childhood. This is why they want to have such a tight grip on the children. It's because they know that they losing their 20s and 30s and 40s age bracket people, you know. But the children and the elderly, are pretty much, you know, there to stay. It's rare that I find an elderly person like in their 70s, 80s, 90s that you know, wake up to the organization, because that's all they have, and if they, you know, wake up and then they decide they want to leave, who's gonna take care of them? If they get this fellowship, their grandchildren aren't gonna look after them, their children aren't gonna look after them. That would be a sad thing, you know. But yeah, that's just a little rant that I had. Watchtower is a company, and children are an enemy of Watchtower, because if you have children, that means it's taking more time away from Watchtower, taking more time away from the preaching work, taking more time away from trying to find people to indoctrinate. Because if you have kids, sometimes it ain't gonna happen all the time. But if you're single, you know, and if you don't, even if you don't have a mate, they even encourage you not to even get married. I'm telling you, they want you to stay single. And they want you to not have no children, because that way you can give more time to the company, to the organization, and that's why they do that. You know, they discourage anything that will fulfill you. They discourage education, higher education. They discourage a good paying career. They discourage children. It's just like, why should the children have to suffer though? Like, you know. But anyway, that's all I want to talk about. This is Mackie P.I.M.O. J.W. Jones. Question everything. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. And don't be afraid to do outside research. Love you all.